Very warm welcome to the DORA webinar with Hivel. I'm excited to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I see people are joining from across the geographies. And just to kick off introduction, I am Sudheer Bandaru. I'm the founder and CEO of Hivel. If it's new for anyone, Hivel is named after a shortcut of high velocity. The mission of Hivel and DORA are very similar to make engineering teams across the globe high velocity teams. I'm thrilled to be inviting Ben Good from Google, who contributed to the DORA report. And I'd like to pass on to Ben to kick off the DORA report, what we have in the 2025 report, what is it all about, the AI magic. Over to you, Ben.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Benjamin Good. I had the privilege of working on this year's report. I worked on the platform engineering chapter, as well as the questions and some of the other research in the report. I am a tech lead at Google for our cloud demo platform, which is an internal platform. So I not only get to do the research around platform engineering, but I get to do the actual platform engineering within Google. So super honored to be a part of this year's report. And I would also really like to thank Hivel for their sponsorship of this year's report. Without their support, we can't make this research possible. So huge thank you to Hivel for sponsoring this year's report. If you haven't already, when you signed up for the webinar, I hope that you already have, but in case you haven't, here's where you can go get the report. So dora.dev / DORA-report-2025, and there's also the QR code there. So I highly encourage you all to go get the report, read through it several times, make notes, mark up the margins, all that kind of fun stuff. Lots of good things in there. And I think that as you go through there and throughout the webinar, you'll see how the things that Hivel does connects with the DORA research and the good software delivery practices that we dig into in the report. And hopefully I've stalled long enough at this point that everyone's had the opportunity to get their phone out and take a picture of the QR code. Okay, so what does DORA do? And who are we? So we are a Google Cloud research program. And what we do is we research the capabilities and the practices that result in high performing teams and organizations and as they deliver software. And really what we're attempting to do is we are identifying the capabilities and the practices that lead to high organizational performance when it comes to building, delivering, and operating software. And that is spanning all different industries, all different types of technology professions. And we try to look at this from a holistic perspective. So we've been doing this for more than a decade. And if you go to dora.dev, you'll see all the past reports. We did a summary of, the decade of research that DORA has done. And then we also have a community there. So we encourage everyone to go and join the community. Lots of good discussion that happens there. And we also do, continuing community discussions. So what we're really aiming to do is, identify the capabilities and help people get better at getting better is really our tagline. So what we do is every year we publish a survey, we do research, we take that data and we try to find themes and the best practices in there. This year we partnered with other organizations doing research in software delivery practices. So we'd also like to thank our research partners in this effort. Again, without the sponsors and without the research partner, we wouldn't be able to do these things, work to the degree that we do these things. For this year's report, we had nearly 5,000 survey responses, which is a really positive number. It's taken by many different folks across the world. And we also in the recent years, last year and this year, we've been augmenting the survey responses with qualitative data. So we have researchers on the team that conduct interviews and have conversations with people in the industry on specific topics. And that gives us a different lens into what we're seeing in the data. And it helps us form our hypotheses and understand what's actually happening. So my favorite instance of this is in the platform engineering chapter, which is near and dear to my heart. We have quotes from interviewees done by the qualitative researchers that say, yes, we use platforms to basically manage our risk. We trust the platform to make sure that the code is going out and it's manageable when it does go out. So, and that backs up our hypotheses and theories as to what's actually happening out there. So one of the things that DORA has done over the years is publish software delivery performance buckets, or the high, medium, low, elite tiers. And these were based off of the traditional software delivery performance indicators. So lead time for changes, deployment frequency, change fail rate. We introduced rework rate last year, broke it out as part of as an independent metric. These are still in the research. But what we've done this year is we have gone beyond those things, and we're looking at other parameters that give us a more granular lens into how teams are performing. So we look at this year, we really drilled into team performance, product performance, friction, and burnout. And we use these measures to do the cluster analysis this year. And that's given us more granularity and also gives us more opportunity to help provide and guide organizations on how to get better at getting better. And what that results in is these 7 different clusters. They emerged from those data points. And we gave them fun little names like foundational challenges or programmatic performers. Say that one a handful of times fast. But what we see in here is each one of these clusters performs differently in different ways, and we can use the capabilities identified in the research to help organizations and guide those organizations into improving in different areas and balancing out the different challenges and practices that they're using. Now, you also might have noticed that this year's report is the state of AI assisted software development. So we're continuing to look into and really dig into how AI is impacting software delivery performance. And what we see is AI is everywhere. Like the chart here shows that really, 10% or fewer folks that took the survey say that they're not using AI or they haven't adopted AI. So it's everywhere. But what very few organizations do is really measure and try to understand AI's impact on software delivery performance. And that's where we really dove into the data and into the research this year. And one of the key takeaways that we found, and I think this, it makes sense when you think about it, but it's not necessarily intuitive when on the surface, is that AI is an amplifier. So when you have a high performing system and you use AI, you get the good things back out of it. But if you have some bad practices, that AI also amplifies those poor practices. So if we can get better at delivering software and operating that software, AI is going to amplify those things for us, and the impact is going to be greater. One of the key things when adopting AI is how much do we trust the things that the AI is producing for us, would it be it code, documentation, diagrams, how much do we trust that? And we see that the majority of people, somewhat trust it or really do trust it. But there's still a few people out there that don't quite trust it. And really what we want to do here is identify the ways that we can improve our use of AI and make it more trustworthy. And in this year's report, we have identified a set of capabilities that lead to better improved organizational performance or team performance or stability. And there's 7 of them. So having a clear and communicated AI stance, a healthy data ecosystem, AI accessible data, internal data, strong version control practices, working in small batches, user-centric focus, and a quality internal platform. Now, you might notice, for those of you that have looked through previous year's research, some of these things aren't new. Strong version control, work in small batches, user-centric. These are things, tried and true capabilities that we've identified in past reports that still resonate and are incredibly impactful even in this new AI assisted software development era that we're in. But there's some new things in here. So having a clear stance on AI. So making sure that everyone across the organization understands where AI is intended to play and help. Makes everyone, levels the playing field. Similarly, a quality internal platform, it also levels the playing field and helps us distribute the AI tools evenly across the organization. And it helps us balance the risk so we can take those code changes and make them useful. If we look at it here, there's a lot going on this slide, but this is how, if we improve user centricity and we add AI to it, we see that it has an impact on team performance. If we improve our AI adoption and adopt AI and we work in small batches, we see that product performance has a positive change. So we can see how AI adoption plus these capabilities, result in changes across the organization for products, individual performance, and friction, and so on and so forth. Okay. How does now, when we do these things, what do we actually see in the data in terms of the key outcomes? So as we adopt AI, and AI adoption is really this blend of how often are we using AI, our reliance on it. Like when I have a problem to solve, do I go to AI to help me solve that problem? How much do I trust it? And then how much do we use it throughout the day? And really the intersection of all those things is AI adoption. So when we adopt AI, we see individual effectiveness improve. And these bands on the size of the dots is the error that we see in the data. So you can think of it like standard deviations for those of us that love statistics. So we see a big improvement in individual effectiveness. But we also see some potentially undesirable outcomes, such as software instability. So when we make a change, was that a good change? And do we have to rework that change? That's instability. So as we go through these things, we see that AI has positive improvements on the time spent doing valuable work, code quality, individual effectiveness, like I mentioned. And really not too much of an impact or a negligible impact, statistically not an impact on things like burnout and friction. So interesting impacts here of AI adoption on the key measures of software delivery. So this is a saying that still rings true, right? A bad system will beat a good person every time, and this still rings true even in this new AI era of building software. So to really make the most of AI in software development and operations, we have to augment our processes with AI. We can't just rely on them to do everything. We have to think of it as an augmentation. So, how do we bring AI and make it a part of code reviews, but not the only thing that happens in code review? How can we build AI into our CI/CD pipelines such that we can deliver reliably and still with high frequency? How do we use AI to improve our security practices and privacy protocols? So these are areas where we can bring AI into the system to help the humans do the work and make everything faster. So as we go forward in this new era, these are things to think about and other ways that we can do it to improve software delivery performance. So, with this in mind, everyone needs to be adapting and improving their culture and their systems. And I'm going to turn it back over to Sudheer now about and talk through about how Hivel can help with those things.
Great. Thanks, Ben. That was a very powerful uh, research and the findings. I'm gonna start sharing. I'm like how I will actually have uh, accommodated and built many of the stuff that the DORA report shared here. In the meantime, maybe just a quick check if there are any questions for Ben or me. I think people can start posting the questions while I may be presenting. I'll have my team here who will be answering some of the questions. So please feel free to post your questions during the demo, and we'll be happy to address them either at the end towards the Q&A, or we can also answer towards the via chat. Yeah, lovely. And we have seen a lot of findings. We have seen a lot of data and insights from the report. But how did these people know all of this information in the first place to respond to this data and the survey? Somebody has to be measuring it somewhere to even to fill the response and the survey from DORA to say this is what is happening in my organization, right? Now, measuring is really, really important. And what resonates well with me about DORA is not that DORA has to fix somebody's bad processes into good processes, but bringing in DORA or the whole concept of measuring engineering productivity has to start with measuring. It makes better people better, better processes better. Usually that is a myth that people think bringing in objective data or productivity is just only to try to put it on bad processes. But we hire the smartest people, and having some visibility into the processes really makes everything exponentially good. And Hivel exactly supports that by fetching the data from across tools and addressing and providing metrics and visibility into various areas that DORA is talking about. So the first one I will start about is the critical metrics here, what we are talking about, the throughput metrics and stability metrics. This data is coming from various different sources. The lead time for changes comes from Git, your deployment frequency comes from your CI/CD, your fail deployment time comes from your PagerDuty, and then when it comes to stability metrics, everything comes from different sources. But even to do this whole plumbing and get this data into a single place where you are able to correlate impact of one process on one metric or all other metrics is really important for organizations. And getting this visibility, which will allow us to address any issues to ensure that our hypothesis of setting up a process is actually working and helping us achieve desired outcomes is critical. That is where we wanted to make sure this data is very accessible to a lot of the engineering leaders and teams over a period of all the time. People before, again, Hivel comes under this new category of companies that's software engineering intelligence. And prior to this, people were stitching this data, writing scripts, relying on Jira dashboards, which are manually entered. And not having this data handy just increases your time for feedback loops. Having this data on an everyday basis is very different than having this data when you want it when things go wrong. One of the very interesting thing, which is also core of the DORA this time, is AI adoption. I was at a very large event conference, a tech conference last week, and I said, "How much AI code does your team ship?" And we got various different responses. And if possible, if we can run a poll here, and I see how many people we have here, I wanted to hear how much AI code does your team ship? This is a very interesting thing, right? Because a lot of people I've been speaking to, engineering leaders, they said my OKR for this quarter is to make sure we are shipping 25% AI code. And and we see this. I'm like Microsoft CTO said that in 5 years, 95% of the code in Microsoft will be AI generated. But I wanted to see what we see here, and we see amazing responses here. We see a bunch of people at various levels of responses. This is good. Now, the interesting thing is not this. The interesting thing is the next question. How did you get this data? Did you get it by number of licenses deployed? Is it by the suggestions accepted from Copilot? Did you do a survey? Or was it anecdotal? If you did not measure it, the last one is basically anecdotal, asking somebody at a water cooler conversation. Is there another poll going out? There you go. Love to see the responses on this one. This is originally it starts with licenses deployed, and then it starts with survey, and then it starts with suggestions. Especially by the time the survey responses are out, things have changed. The pace at which things are going in AI today. There are some people who are using licenses deployed, some by suggestions accepted, some by survey, some don't measure it all. We have them all over the place, right? Now, the interesting part is if we are not measuring, and if these are the sources, there is a bigger problem. The reason is if you take AI metrics that are coming from Copilot or any AI tool for that matter, suggestions accepted is very different than the actual adoption. Only a small percentage of the code actually survives the code review process or the acceptance. You modify the code as an engineer and push only 15%, 10%, or 1% of the code to production. And this is the real adoption, not what all we accepted and deleted. This gives us a very false sense of progress to say I'm accepting a lot of AI, I'm adopting AI, and it brings us into very different measurement outcomes where we are saying we are adopting AI, but we can't see results yet. That is a very tricky part. With Hivel, we have seen this problem come again and again with many engineering leaders. We have developed something called code telemetry. It's short for CT, similar to CT scan in the health space, where we wanted to run the CT scan on every pull request and understand what percentage of the code is written by AI versus human. Now, this is all the code that really survived your commits and code review processes and are part of the PRs that are going into production. When we talk about DORA, we say that everybody there's a lot of AI use, and sometimes some people rely on it and some people measure it. But what is, when we measure it, where is the data coming from? We use a multi-orchestrator agents where we have 7 agents that are running and doing various different activities, helping us to understand what are the behavioral patterns of writing the code. The simplest way I would explain this concept is if you see a LinkedIn post, it's very easy for a human brain to understand if it was ChatGPT or if it was human written. Similarly, we follow a lot of these practices and behavioral patterns, understand what is happening, and create this code. We also add the confidence percentage. The reason being, when the code is very small, it's very hard for us to understand with confidence if it is AI versus human. If it is just one line, it's hard. So, but irrespective of having the confidence score, what really matters is the signal. A true signal compared to suggestions accepted. That is how I would look at it. Not aim to make it 100%, but directionally, are we really adopting AI? And then there is another interesting layer that happens on top of it, the governance layer. When AI written code is higher than 75%, we have seen companies taking this governance layer into picture and saying if AI is greater than 75% or 80% threshold, make sure there are two levels of code reviews happening. This really improves the quality of the code and ensure things are fixed before they go to production. Now, what is actually happening with AI in the picture? Our expectations are that AI is going to help us ship faster. What actually it is doing is helping us write code faster. And I'm referring to most of the code generation tools like Copilot, Cursor. If you see this, AI says it takes 8 hours for non-AI users and 2 hours for AI users. Now, this is definitely expected outcome. And in other way, this is helping us to reduce some of the thinking fatigue, and it's also helping us accelerate keystrokes. Now, what is happening to the review time? If non-AI users were taking 2 hours to do the code review, AI users, if people who have written using AI, they're taking 8 hours to do the code review. The net outcome is that we just moved the bottleneck from coding time to review time. And because there's a lot of back and forth happening at the review stage, now the magic is current in the rework. When people have written in the past or even in the current state, the developers know exactly what they write. Can you explain me this code, what you have written? Unfortunately, today, the author of the code also don't know what they have wrote or what they have submitted in the PR. Now, this creates a lot of problem. And we see that people, when AI code is written, rework goes up by 40%. We have seen a lot of cases where we have seen it goes up to 8%. The more junior the dev, the more code they have accepted, not knowing what it actually does. And we have seen it hit north of 80%. So on average, depending on the talent density and how well the engineers are aware of the code that they're accepting, it has changed drastically. But getting this visibility to say the level of rework that is happening and are we really moving the bottleneck or fixing the problem is very, very important for us to see the impact of AI in real net outcomes. In this normal scenario, what we are actually seeing, we have seen that the cycle time didn't change much because we just moved the bottleneck from coding time to review time. So the speed did not change. Because of the rework, deployment frequency didn't change much, and we are basically stagnant. After investing millions of dollars into AI tools, if we do not invest time into measuring this data, we continue to live and breathe that we are making productivity improvements by just looking at a metric that is, say, suggestions accepted. So it is super crucial for us to understand this data, bring the visibility. Now, I would like to, there are so many different metrics. There are so many patterns that change. Now, the patterns, what I'm showing here are that are commonly observed in the early stages of the maturity of bringing in AI tools. These patterns keep changing. The good news is it starts like this, but it gets mature enough and people bring in more brown bag lessons, understand what is happening, what you need to do, where do you need to train the team, and then make sure that things are happening. But it's all only possible when we measure it and have some data that tells us the story. Next, we wanted to move into setting and tracking goals. Even if you want to bring in AI and people have these OKRs and people look at these OKRs on a quarterly basis, but how easy it is to kind of set and track goals. Do people rely on Excel sheets today? Do people rely on any OKR tools today? And I'm specifically referring to engineering productivity metrics or anything for the engineering teams. How do you set and track your goals? Because we have seen there are a bunch of metrics. And DORA has given us so many examples of different archetypes, what is happening. And you wanted to make sure you're having visibility across all the different metrics. So we'll run a small poll to understand how people are looking into goals, because it's humanly impossible for us to achieve everything at once, achieve higher speed, higher quality, higher throughput. And especially in software engineering, it is very likely the possibility where we try to improve one metric, it automatically impacts another metric. People go fast, break things, but we look at the speed, and before we celebrate, the P0s pop up.
I love what you're talking about measurement and the impacts and the knock-on changes. I love it. Makes my DORA heart.
That's why I said I'm like, there is a lot of mission alignment here between DORA and Hivel. You're doing the research, and we are trying to help companies put that into practice. And while we are waiting for the poll responses, a good number of people trying to set goals but don't have a tool. Some set goals and track regularly. That's amazing to see. The good news is that I'm like, no, there are very, very few people who rely on subjective feedback. Amazing. We have great audience today. If people are relying, and people definitely want to track goals, it is important. And Hivel has this data where we are able to set goals and track them. And generally with Hivel, what we try to say is focus only on one metric per quarter. We do not try to boil the ocean by focusing on everything at once. Generally, we do a baselining exercise and we align with the engineering leadership to say what is that one metric, what is that one dimension that you want to get better at. If NPS is a problem because quality is going bad, then we focus on quality. If speed is a problem or throughput is a problem, we work on it and make sure the rest of the stuff are just like maintaining it as is, whereas one metric moves up the needle. We talk about new work and rework and maintenance, one of the critical DORA metric right now. This data about new work, rework, maintenance doesn't come out of the box out of any dev tool, but it is a measurement in DORA. And how do we do this? This has been in Accelerate research everywhere. But now how do people track rework? We go ahead and scan every repository, every line of code that is written in terms of your commits and pull requests, and understand what part of the code was written recently and modified versus what part of the code that was written older than 30 days or something and then modify. One of the reasons, a lot of times we see, and I've been a victim of it as well, when we miss deadlines, as engineers, we do not know why we miss a deadline. And as a good engineer, we always strive to make things better than what they were before. And you kind of go and fix older stuff, and we try to keep polishing the code until we feel better. And if you're trying to make an older piece of code better, when you touch that area of the code, it's like the Boy Scouts rule. You wanted to say, keep the ground cleaner than what it has been before you entered the ground. And that's the good engineer's natural way of working. And they care less about missing the deadline. They can't let the feature go out if they see a problem and can't fix it. And Hivel gives you this exact metrics of what is a rework and what is a maintenance and how much of new work happened in place. And people, when they miss deadline, they started to say, one of the engineering leaders said, previously people always said we miss a deadline because of scope changes. Now they are coming and saying that, hey, we fixed things that were about to break sometime in the future. We did some tech debt because we were working on that area of the code. And there was some rework because the requirements changed once. The whole concept of arguing about requirement changes, which is a very subjective thing, have transformed into a very objective way, allowing people to double down on where they have to really go do the refactoring. No company today has enough resources, even including Google, to go refactor everything that you wrote 100 years ago, 10 years ago. If you wanted to really pinpoint one area where you want to go rewrite and where you want to do the tech debt, you go by repository, understand which repo has the highest refactoring, what is actually slowing down people, and then go refactor those repos.
I think the rework metric is a really important one. Like you mentioned, it is one of the key metrics, and being able to measure it is hugely impactful. Understanding how your team is operating and the flow at which your team is operating. So having the ability to measure it and measure it consistently gives you the ability to learn from what you're doing, which I think is super awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And we speak a lot about burnout, well-being of the developers. And my definition of, or generally at Hivel, the fundamental philosophy of productivity is not about working more number of hours to get more work done. It is how can you get some good, valuable work done in the few hours that we have at work and make sure developers are not burning up. Unfortunately, today we do not have visibility into the burnout and well-being until somebody reports in their annual survey. Now, how do you get this? And no developer is going to tell that I'm burning out every day or every time they burn out. Hivel solves this with simple visual graphic that people can pull it up during their stand-up call and show. It is not about the number of Jira tickets somebody is having or owning. It's not about the number of Slack pings. It's not about the number of hours somebody is spending in meetings. The most cognitive overload an engineer goes through is when they actually write the code in addition to many other things. And getting this visibility into what is happening in terms of your Git activity, who is writing the code, who is reviewing the code, who is merging the code. All of these are different bubbles on the product, and each bubble also shows the size of the activity. A smaller bubble represents a smaller set of lines of code, and a bigger bubble represents a huge lines of change. Now, this immediately tells us so much of story about in one visuals. It tells me Sean is burning out over the weekends. And we also see Ray is actually committing, but without opening any PRs. This helps a stand-up call to be very effective, where they say, "Hey, I see you're writing a lot of code, but it feels like there is some momentum, there is activity, but there is no result." This is how stand-up calls run when people use Hivel, and they actually unlock themselves and faster feedback loops during the stand-up call, not when we miss the deadline after the sprint end. This is very important for people to gain the visibility, offer help proactively, and ensure that we redistribute the work. And unfortunately, when we plan the systems, we cannot estimate better as humans. We still didn't get better at estimate.
Classic engineering.
It is, right? It is the nature of the systems.
Yes.
And the only way when we cannot get better estimates is to see what is the reality. 8-story pointer turns out to be a 2-story pointer work, and vice versa. And somebody is burning out and somebody is completely stuck. We want everybody to go to the foosball table together, not when somebody is coding and when somebody is like playing. DORA also talks a lot about measuring time spent on valuable work. But what is valuable work? How do we even classify something as valuable work? Is valuable work something that a developer feels it is right, a product manager thinks it is right, or what matters to the business? This, even identifying and classifying valuable work, is a bigger problem in itself. And valuable work, like being busy is different, but getting results is different. When we see companies like Google and Microsoft, there is one of the metric that really comes that a lot of investors talk about. It is about the revenue per engineer. There is a higher revenue per engineer at the Span companies or Mango companies lately. How do companies generate higher revenue per engineer or per employee? It is by doing a lot of valuable work. But how do you get visibility into this? What is not valuable work? It's not that every tech debt is not bad, but is the work that we are doing today, by not reviewing the code, not by cutting corners, and you push it forward, is it going to come and bite us back? If it is coming in the form of customer success issues, it's definitely an impact to the business. If it comes in the form of tech debt, it's definitely slowing us down. So if it is the roadmap, then well and good. And what you see on the x-axis is the ticket teams, and you see which teams are having what level of the roadmap work is happening. And the similar view, we also have it by products. We had a customer who said, we never realized we are doing a lot of customer success work on this particular product. This doesn't generate us revenue, and it is just impacting our NPS. We better go sunset this product. So it is very important, and we classify and allocate the work to make sure we have engineers who really spend time on valuable work. While there are so many different things, we also have seen the different archetypes. How do we keep a track of so many different parameters or metrics? Valuable work, rework, lead time, maintenance, everything, right? And I think DORA has done a really smart thing about classifying it in a cluster style, which is something at Hivel we will try to bring that in one day. But inspired by FICO score, a credit score in the US, we came up with something called Hivel score. And now Hivel score, it has to be different for everybody. We define a set of parameters. We understand what is the weightage you can give to each of these metrics, and ensure you get a collective single score that helps us to say, how does this team perform? How is this team doing better? Very similar to our credit score, we say what's helping your score versus what's hurting your score. Engineering leaders do not have time today. And this is not something easy to build, because everybody should not be looked upon on the same metrics. An individual contributor who writes code should be given higher weightage for writing code. A reviewer should be given higher weightage for reviewing the code. And probably in some cases, I have seen managers who were given negative scoring because they start writing code. So you depending on your core business, you give the flexibility. and you see how each of these different teams are performing depending on the weights, and see how you're actually doing compared to the org. This becomes a very objective way of having a conversation and helping each other in the team. When I see you're happy, you want to say something?
Yeah, so what I really like is that with this, you can see when you make a change what's happening. It gives so this goes back to um, the measurement aspect and getting better at getting better. I think,
Yes.
and that's where, like you said at the beginning, similar missions between Dora and Hivel. And I think the things that you've been speaking about around understanding what's happening and the cycle times and who's unbalanced or burning out and these scores really make the measurements actionable and help you get better at getting better. It's pretty neat.
And measurement is one step or the first step of the process, but we definitely need to take some action. And this is where Hivel introduces our code review agent. One of the things that you have actually presented as part of the DORA report examples, we wanted to make sure we are not moving the bottleneck from coding time to review time. Hivel's code review agent automatically takes a first pass at the code, at the PR, and writes comments. And based on the comments, the developer themselves reviews the comments, addresses them, resolves them, and then sends them to the reviewer. This saves a lot of review cycle counts, a lot of back and forth. And very interestingly, one of the feedback that we got is something very non-tangible. The developer, the author said, I would have felt guilty if my reviewer wrote this comment to me. And the reviewer said, I would have felt very uncomfortable to write this comment to my developer, but I wanted him to change. Glad there is a human problem that is being solved by a machine. This is the code review agent that helps people really ship faster. And then we also have agents that think and act, which is something what we call Lucy. While we have a lot of metrics, definitely the future of UI and UX is going to be less interface or no interfaces. We are all waiting to see what that's going to be. But to our knowledge, what we know, what can really make our users' life easier, we have launched this Lucy, where people can ask any question. And we have really customized it. It's not a chat GPT. We have customized it for engineering teams to understand this data. If you wanted to see the PR activity of a team or a repo or a user, all of these entities, it's very hard to identify and write them. So we have grouped these things. It becomes an easy drop down, something that we are super familiar with. And these are all baked into the place. You get a complete nice graph along with a good insight and action what you can take about it. We are doubling down on this and we are rolling it out to users on a week by week basis based on the feedback, and the response has been really overwhelming. While we can do a lot of measurements, while we can take a lot of actions, the business can understand only one language, which is outcomes. This is like how our customers have really benefited. Imagine a company, a NASDAQ listed company with 1,000 engineers. If they have released 16% more features just by taking a very data-driven approach to understanding where the bottlenecks are and what they have done about it, that is like the cost of 160 engineers done. The ROI of measurement and taking action is like phenomenal. And we have seen this across many companies. These are the companies where we have the permission to show. There are many other companies where we still need to get a permission. But one of the reasons what companies love about Hivel is we are not throwing another tool at the problem. We are partners in crime for them to make sure they achieve their business outcomes. And while there is definitely a lot of excitement here about adoption, impact, and what we are actually trying to do is give you a balance. I'm like, before we have seen this 25 DORA report, we built something called a Hivel quadrant, where you kind of see like a magic Gartner quadrant. Where do people stand? Like, are you going fast, breaking things or not? So everybody falls into one or the other quadrant. And the beauty of this quadrant is that this is all very relative to the organization internally. Somebody cannot say DORA report, I don't know who are those 5,000 people. I understand that. There could be 200 people from Google and 100 people from Microsoft. But this teams on the Hivel quadrant or everybody whom you know from your own company. So this makes people exchange notes, understand best practices. And when you kind of bring this kind of visibility, automatically you kind of save a lot of money. And we show the ROI contribution, I'm like ROI of your AI investments. Thank you so much. Open for questions. Any quick thoughts, Ben, while we are waiting for the questions to come in?
Yeah, I think this is great. So, I wanted to reiterate our appreciation for Hivel and their support of our work. And yeah, keep an eye out on the community and new reports coming soon on how we can adopt the AI capabilities as well.
Lovely. So no questions on the chat. Please reach out to me, and happy to kind of send any questions to Ben if there are something that I can't answer. But otherwise, great partnering with you on this, Ben. And thank you all for who joined.
Thank you.
There is one question. Yes, how AI comes in on this measurement. I think I've addressed it. The data from AI comes from two sources. One is the data that comes from your AI tools. The two is the core telemetry that Hivel has built in. Both of these are the sources of AI, and we also correlate with the data that comes from your other dev tools, your GitHub, Jira, everything else. And all these features are available for you to try it out. So please send us a message. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Take care.